Girls should know how to stay quiet. Not everything needs to be said." The words landed very softly, not raised, not angry, but enough to make the kitchen feel cold. My mother stood by the counter, folding a dish towel slowly, as if she were folding away the entire evening, and everything I wasn't allowed to say. There was no arguing, no tears, just turning toward the sink and washing a glass that was already clean. The rim was scrubbed over and over until the skin on my fingertips started to sting. Warm water slid over my wrist, the soap bubbles disappearing quickly, but my hand didn't stop. No one told me to do it, but in moments like that, a small action can become the only place where I hide my breathing. There are fears that never make a sound. They live in the way I choose silence, so I don't ruin the mood. In the way I make myself smaller, neater, shaped to fit the image the family wants to keep. And it was from nights that seemed so harmless like this that I began to understand one thing, that this silence wasn't the end. It was only the pause before I wouldn't need to stay quiet anymore. And this is the story of Hannah Miller. There are families that don't control through violence. They control through conditions, through a polite version of love, loving you when you behave, when you cooperate, when you don't make anyone uncomfortable. If you're only loved when you're good, is that really love? Before Stella continues, where are you listening to this story right now? On the couch after everyone's gone to sleep, in your car on the way home from a late shift, or in a quiet kitchen with a cup of tea? And what time is it where you are? Leave a comment and let Stella know. If this story touches you, or if you think someone else needs to hear it on a long night, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can meet again. And one small thing, said very softly. The story you're about to hear is fictional, created with the help of AI, and carefully edited by humans to offer a reflective, educational perspective, not to encourage anyone to copy what happens in it. My name is Hannah. I'm 28 years old. In America, people like to say, family is everything, as if it's obvious. My house was like that too. Pretty, clean, orderly, always with the right seasonal greeting cards and a scented candle that was always halfway burned on the shelf. My mother liked dinners that were neat and on time. My sister, Lauren, was good with people, good at saying the things that made others feel comfortable. And me? I was the peacekeeper. I was the one who called first, apologized first, stepped back first. I was the one who texted, "Everything's fine," even when, inside, I wasn't fine. I thought that was maturity. I thought silence was a way of loving. But that night, when I washed a clean glass until my hands turned red, I realized something was quietly growing inside me. Not anger, clarity, and the thing that scared me most was I had broken that silence before, just once, and after that one time, everything changed. I sat in that kitchen a little longer, looking at the glass I'd just washed, propped at an angle on the drying rack. It was shiny enough to reflect the yellow light under the cabinets, but inside me there was a smudge I couldn't wipe away. My mother had gone upstairs. Her footsteps were light, familiar, as if what she'd said was just a normal reminder before bed. I told myself the same thing. I was used to making my own feelings smaller, so they wouldn't become a problem. My house had a very American rhythm. On time, clean, everything like it had already been placed into a schedule. Dinner usually started at 6:30 p.m. My mom would set out roasted chicken or meatloaf, a little salad, and warm bread. Lauren would tell a few funny stories from work, laugh at the right moments, just enough for everyone at the table to nod along out of habit. I nodded too. I smiled too. And little by little, between the clink of forks and knives and those just right stories, something became clear. In this kitchen, I was still there. But the question, "What do you think?" had disappeared somewhere along the way, or it only existed in a way that didn't require an answer. Nothing collapsed all at once. It slipped bit by bit like a chair being pulled slightly out of place every day, until you sit down and realize you're no longer in the right spot. At first it was small. My mom would ask, "What time are you coming home on Sunday?" and then answer for me, gently like a habit, "Never mind, you're probably busy. Lauren and I will go to church and then stop by Costco." I'd listen and nod, used to being eased out of the plan in a soft voice. Then it became things that should have required my input. That Thanksgiving, I called to ask what I should bring, and my mom replied quickly, "You don't need to bring anything. Lauren and I already handled everything." Still, I stopped by my usual bakery and bought a pumpkin pie, holding the box at the door like I was holding on to part of my old role. Lauren opened the door, hugged me, then called into the kitchen. "Hannah's here." Polite, neat, like she was announcing a delivery, not a person coming home. After that, the harmless lines started showing up more and more during dinner and weekend calls. Don't worry, it's complicated. You probably don't want to hear it, it'll give you a headache. Let the adults talk. No one said outright that I didn't belong in the conversation. The conversation just kept moving without me, natural as water that already knows its path. And I stood on the bank, present and not present. And then there was a moment I'll never forget. A moment that, if I told it, a lot of women would understand immediately without needing an explanation. It was when my mom and Lauren decided to sell my old car, my sedan I'd left at the house because I worked in the city and only came back on weekends. I found out when I came home and saw the parking spot empty, a faint oil stain still on the concrete. I asked, a little stunned, "Where's my car?" Lauren looked at me like she'd just remembered something she was supposed to mention. "Oh, we sold it. We got a great price. Mom meant to tell you, but she's been so busy." I froze, the car key cold in my coat pocket like a joke. 2 sentences flashed through my mind that I wanted to say out loud. But that's my car, and why didn't anyone ask me? But my mouth still managed to slam on the brakes with the same familiar line. They must have had a reason. And then the voice that had followed me for years showed up immediately, instructing me like a reflex. Don't make it a big deal. Don't be sensitive. Don't ruin the mood. I smiled, a small smile, so forced my lips ached. Yeah, that's fine, I heard myself say, as if I just agreed to change a tablecloth and not something that involved me. The emptiness passed through quickly, then left a heavy block sitting still in my chest. And right then, I paused and looked at myself from the outside. Was I really too sensitive, or was I just used to being loved only when I stayed quiet, only when I didn't demand a place for my own voice? That night, I went up to my old room, opened a drawer, and found a few things still exactly where they'd been. A graduation photo, a winter sweater, a few old greeting cards. They all proved that I used to belong here. But when I lay down in bed and stared at the ceiling, I felt like I was sleeping over in my own house. And for the first time, I stopped and looked straight at what I'd always avoided. I'd called it harmony. But maybe for years, I'd just been learning how to disappear. Politely. The smell of coffee pulled me up like it did every morning at home. The drip of the machine, the rustle of the newspaper, familiar footsteps on the wooden floor. When I came downstairs, my mom was already sitting there, hair in a neat bun, a cream cardigan. Lauren stood at the counter, eyes on her phone, smiling softly. No one mentioned the car. I stayed quiet too, poured coffee, and told myself not to make it a big deal. But the bitterness that morning seemed stronger, like something inside me had shifted a beat while the whole kitchen kept insisting everything was normal. It happened that afternoon. We were reorganizing the storage cabinet in the living room to get ready for Sunday dinner. My mom liked the house, tidy before church, as if neatness could keep everything in life from sliding out of place. Lauren was saying something about having a few friends over next weekend. I was quietly stacking photo albums, fine dust catching on my fingertips. Then the phone rang. My mom answered, and her voice changed instantly. Soft, light, but with an invisible tension in it. I couldn't hear what the other person was saying. I only watched my mom respond with a few short lines and then hang up. She set the phone down like she was placing something fragile on the table. "Hannah," my mom called, not looking me in the eye. "Can you help me with something?" I looked up. Lauren looked up too, but her expression already had this guarded edge. My mom took a breath, then spoke like she was giving me a perfectly ordinary task. "Aunt Carol and Uncle Mike are fighting again. She called to vent to me. Call her. You're good with words. You can calm things down." I stood still for a few seconds. In my house, calm things down had always meant I would sit in the middle, take it all in, say the right neutral things, and carry the weight home with me. My heart started pounding like an old reflex. My hands went cold even though the room was warm. I set the album down very slowly, like if I moved too fast, I'd slip back into the role I knew. "No," I said. Just one word. Not loud. Not wrapped in a long explanation. I didn't even try to make it sound nice the way I usually did. I just said no, and looked at the tabletop, like I had placed something heavy down there. The air in the living room stopped. Lauren didn't say anything. My mom didn't say anything right away either. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear the refrigerator kick on, the wall clock ticking, and even the blood rushing in my ears. Then my mom looked at me. Not with anger. Not with that familiar disappointed look either. She looked at me like she was looking at someone who had just walked into the house, and she didn't recognize them. Someone with her daughter's face, but eyes that were no longer in the old place. I saw it clearly, and it made my throat go dry. You! My mom started, then stopped, like she was searching for a reasonable explanation to lay over this moment. But she couldn't find one. She just closed her mouth, gave a very small nod, and turned away, pretending to be busy with the pile of things on the shelf. I thought there would be an argument, blame, a lecture about duty. But no, nothing loud happened. Just a quiet shift, like when you pull one thread from a seam and the shirt is still there, but you know it won't fit the same from now on. From that day on, no one brought up Aunt Carol or Uncle Mike again. No one brought up the no I had said, but I started to notice. The house still had room for everyone. It's just that my place, after that, was no longer where it used to be. After that afternoon, everything still looked the same, so much that if someone stopped by just once, they would probably think the house was happy. My mom still cooked dinner on time. Lauren still laughed and talked, still asked if I wanted more gravy, still told work stories like nothing had cracked. But some changes don't live in words. They live in the fact that my position in the middle disappeared, and with it, the feeling of being needed. Before, the small tasks always landed on one person. Hannah, can you help me carry this upstairs? Hannah, text your aunt. Hannah, can you look at this email for me? They were small things, but they created a rhythm where my presence had weight. Now everything got done neatly, without a single request. My mom carried things herself. Lauren texted herself. The words, "Can you help?" disappeared from ordinary days, as quietly as a towel being pulled off a rack with no sound. I stayed one more night and then went back to my apartment in the city. On the drive, part of me kept waiting for a text. Did you get home? Or, what are you eating tonight? The kind of messages that used to show up regularly enough to feel like a safety signal. My phone stayed silent. That night, dinner was canned soup, heated quickly, eaten standing at the small kitchen counter. The light in my apartment was white and cold, no scented candle smell like my mom's, no cabinet doors opening and closing like Lauren's. My phone sat beside the bowl out of habit. I checked it a few times, then started making excuses for them again. They're busy, they forgot, The more I thought, the clearer one sad thing became. I had gotten used to writing other people's words for them. In the days after, the polite routine kept going. My mom still sent photos of food in the family group chat with a short line. Made roast chicken today? Lauren still reacted with a heart emoji. Hannah reacted too. The ritual kept running like a steady family broadcast. Only now, no one asked how the person on the other side of the screen was actually living. Present, but like I was on a different floor, where everything was only form. It showed up most clearly on a Wednesday afternoon. I got off work late. Winter made the sky go dark early. Walking past the grocery store, I saw the butter cookies my mom always bought when the weather turned cold, and my steps slowed without me meaning to. My hand touched the box, and my nose stung. Not because of the cookies, but because of the memory. A warm living room, the TV low, my mom folding a blanket, Lauren talking on the sofa, and me sitting on the floor eating butter cookies like a kid. Homesickness hit fast and real, bringing an almost automatic reflex with it. I wanted to drive home, but at the same time, a strange feeling rose up like a deep breath. I didn't want to go back. Not because I was angry or wanted anyone to hurt. My body just remembered what it felt like to have to fit in that house. When I pictured sitting at dinner, listening to the conversation move along while I was only there to complete the picture, my chest grew heavy. Then a small relief appeared, small but clear, light as taking off a too tight sweater. Guilt came right after. Guilt for feeling relieved. Guilt for not rushing home the second I missed them. Standing in the grocery aisle, still holding the box, a quiet question came up. Why could peace feel so empty? And why could that emptiness feel so good? I brought the cookies home and set them on the kitchen shelf without opening them. They sat there like a small piece of evidence that the memories were still there, the love was still there, but something new was forming too. Missing them didn't mean I had to go back. Sometimes it was just a sign that I used to belong, and now I was learning how to belong to myself in a different way. The box of butter cookies sat on the shelf all night. In the morning, I still didn't open it. I just laid my hand on the smooth cardboard, and childhood rushed back with the smell of vanilla, the smell of butter. When I was little, I was always praised for being good and easy. At school, the teacher wrote, "Hannah is such a sweet girl." At home, my mom would say that Hannah never makes anyone's life difficult. The praise sounded soft, but as I got older, I understood it was like a string. To keep being good, I learned to give in before anyone had to ask. Give up the last cookie, give up my turn to speak, give up my own feelings. The house ran smoothly when I knew how to become quiet. The sentence I heard most was, "Don't be so sensitive." It sounded like kind advice, but I understood it as, "Don't make other people face your feelings." And good slowly turned into an apologizing reflex. Once at work, a coworker spilled coffee on my paperwork, and my mouth still blurted out, "It's fine, my fault." My friend just went silent for a beat and asked, "You apologized because someone else spilled coffee on your stuff?" That question touched me lightly and opened a door. I looked back at the box of butter cookies and understood something simple. Silence wasn't my nature. It was something I learned from praise, from reminders, and from the times everything stayed peaceful as long as I was easy. If love always comes with conditions, good girls get hugged, girls who speak up get corrected, then growing up in a family like that turns you into someone who's always checking where the line is before you breathe. And then a question started to appear, slowly but clearly. If one day I stopped playing the role of good and easy, what would happen? That question didn't leave me even after I turned off the lights. It sat in my chest like a small pebble, not sharply painful, but enough that I could feel it every time I shifted in bed. That night, it was colder than usual. Wind scraped at the window frame with a thin, whistling sound, and the cookie box stayed still on the shelf like an unfinished period. Around 10 p.m., out of habit, my hand reached for my phone. My mom and I had kept a ritual for years, a short call before bed. Not always about anything important. Usually just asking what I ate, reminding me to wear another layer because it was cold, asking if I was busy tomorrow. Those small questions used to make me believe I was still being seen, even if sometimes it was only like a task that completed the day. The screen lit up, my mom's name and my contacts. My finger was already in the right place to tap call. Then it stopped. A very brief moment, but inside it was a lifetime of reflex. If I don't call, what will mom think? Will she feel hurt? Will Lauren say something? And the most embarrassing thing of all, I was afraid of becoming the difficult child, the child who makes other people have to worry. My heart raced, my fingertips went cold, like the day I said no in the living room. That's when I realized, even one phone call is like a leash. It keeps me in the right place, in the right role. I picked up the phone, then set it down on the kitchen table. Softly, but the small click sounded loud in the quiet apartment, like I just decided something too big for such a small action. I went to wash my face, change into pajamas, trying to do normal things to fill the space that was opening up. But my ears kept leaning toward the phone, as if it might buzz at any second. In bed, staring at the ceiling, I waited. Not waiting for mom to call and ask, "Are you okay?" But waiting to prove to myself that the connection was real, not just a schedule. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, nothing. Out of habit, I defended them in my head. Maybe mom went to bed early, maybe she's busy, maybe her phone died. But another thought cut through, sharp and still. If this mattered to mom, she would have called. Even just a missed call, or a text that said, "Everything okay?" So I'd know tonight's silence had been noticed. The moment I truly heard the truth was when I realized no one called, no one texted, not a single sign. It felt like standing on my own front porch while the lights were on inside, but no one turned to see who was out there. Some relationships exist because of habit, not connection. That wasn't an accusation, it was just a cold fact, like the surface of a window when you touch it. And the strangest thing was, after the first drop, a thin layer of peace settled over me. Not the warm kind of peace, but the peace of stopping the disguise. No more explaining. No more forcing things to fit. That night, for the first time, silence wasn't something I used to keep the peace. It became a choice. A small choice, but enough for me to understand. If all it takes is me stopping one familiar thing and everything disappears instantly, then maybe. For a long time, I wasn't loved for being me. I was loved for playing the right role. The next day, nothing dramatic happened. No urgent call, no, "Where did you go?" like a part of me had still secretly been waiting for. Just a completely normal morning, the garbage truck outside, the faint smell of toast drifting from the apartment next door, and pale white light spilling through the window. The world kept turning, even though for the first time, I didn't do what everyone was used to expecting. In the days after, silence took on a different shape. Instead of shrinking, I practiced not rushing out to catch feelings that were never mine to carry. Every time my phone lit up with a family name, instead of automatically picking up, I gave myself one extra beat to breathe. Just one beat, but enough to ask, am I answering because I want to, or because I'm afraid? Then an invitation came on a Friday afternoon through the family group chat. Lauren texted, Sunday, Mom wants to have a little meeting. There's something we need to discuss. Mom reacted with a smiley face, like this was just scheduling dinner. Those two words, need to discuss, dried out my throat because I knew exactly how those meetings worked. Something was tense, something could make the atmosphere uncomfortable, and they needed someone to sit in the middle so everything could be smooth again. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. In my head, the living room flashed, the clock ticking, my mom's eyes waiting for me to say, "I'll call and help," and Lauren exhaling in relief. For too long, I'd always been the cushion between sharp edges. And if I walked into that meeting, I knew I'd do it again automatically, soft, polite, and slowly drained. My reply appeared so short it surprised even me. "I can't join on Sunday. You all go ahead and talk." I paused for a few seconds before sending, as if to make sure I wasn't begging to be forgiven. Then I hit send. No extra apology, no long explanation. This time the boundary didn't need to be decorated to be acceptable. After I sent it, there was a small emptiness, like I'd just stepped out of a familiar room and closed the door. And right after that, a real lightness ran through my chest. Not satisfaction, just light, like setting down a heavy bag my shoulders had been bracing under for too long. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The living room flashed again, the clock ticking, my mom waiting for "I'll call and help," Lauren exhaling. For too long, I'd been the cushion between sharp edges. And if I showed up, I'd do it again, polite all the way to exhaustion. That weekend, instead of driving home, I took a slow walk around my neighborhood. I stopped by a small bookstore and bought a thick hardcover novel, like I was giving myself a pocket of quiet. Back at my apartment, I made tea, opened the box of butter cookies for the first time, snapped off a piece, and heard that small crunch. Everything moved slowly, normally, but inside that normal was something new. I was learning how to stay with myself without asking anyone's permission. Then my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a private text from Mom. Just one short line, but it was enough to make my whole body stop. "You disappoint me." No exclamation point, no question, no harsh words. It sat on the screen like a thin sheet of paper, but it had enough weight to stall the entire apartment. Pale blue light reflected on the kitchen table. The tea was still warm, the cookie halfway eaten, and the night suddenly went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming softly. I read it once, then read it again. And the strangest thing was, the pain didn't surge the way it used to. Before, a sentence like that would have snapped my whole body awake. I would have called immediately. I would have apologized before I even understood what happened. I would have spoken fast, soft, perfectly in roll, as if being skilled enough could make everything in the house feel calm again. But this time, instead of rushing, a blank space opened up. Inside that space, all my old reflexes paused, like someone had flipped a switch. The word disappoint suddenly revealed something deeply unsettling. It wasn't talking about right or wrong. It was talking about the fact that I had stepped out of my familiar place. A family meeting, a short refusal, that's all. And yet the text came so fast, like someone had yanked a string, and in that exact moment, a clear image appeared. Not my mom angry, but my mom out of order. The smooth she was used to having was gone, because the person in the middle was missing. The phone sat in my hand, heavy like evidence. My hand trembled, but not from fear. It trembled because I was finally looking straight at what I'd avoided for years. In that house, peace always had someone paying for it. Not with cash, with giving in, with showing up at the right time, with saying the words that made everyone comfortable, even when I was choking on my own. And more surprising than anything, the text didn't make me feel bad anymore. It made me feel clear. Clear that for a long time, love had been tied to a function. When I performed the function, everything stayed smooth, everyone stayed comfortable. I got praised for being good. When I stopped, just once, I got labeled disappointing. No fight needed. Just one sentence, enough to pull me back onto the track. The tears came after that, slow and hot. They fell quietly, like my body was draining a layer of tension it had held for too long. I wiped my cheek with the back of my hand. And the scariest part was, while I cried, I no longer had the urge to run home and fix anything. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding I could explain into being okay. This was a pattern that had turned into a system, and that system had grown on my polite sacrifices. Trying one more time wouldn't soften it. It would only strengthen it. No arguing back, no exposing anyone, no fighting to win. Just one quiet question I dared to keep for myself for the first time. If I keep being the soft cushion, where will the rest of my life go? The phone was still on the table. The message was still there. But instead of rushing in to put out a wave of emotion, I opened my work calendar. The coming days showed up like an empty space that could be filled with something else, something that didn't require anyone's permission. And inside that space, a new choice started to form. Not loud, not dramatic, just a different road to live on. The apartment was the same, but the way I moved through it had changed. Anxiety didn't make me circle around like I was avoiding a puddle, afraid if I stepped in, it would splash. I made coffee, pulled the curtains open, let the light flood the room. I kept the phone face down on the table a little longer, like it was a deliberate choice, not avoidance. My mom's text was still there, but it didn't function like a siren controlling my whole day anymore. Work suddenly became an anchor. I worked at a small company in the city, not glamorous, but with its own rhythm. Emails to answer, meetings to prep for, small tasks to finish. When I held on to concrete things like plans and deadlines, my mind spun less around the question, am I a bad daughter? Not because I forgot, but because for the first time, my energy went into making something real instead of spending it trying to fit other people's feelings. Then I started saying yes to invitations I used to ignore. A coworker invited me to lunch at a soup and sandwich place near the office. An old friend texted, "Are you free to go for a walk tonight?" Small invitations, but the feeling around them was completely different. No one needed me to be good. No one expected me to smooth the air. There, I was allowed to show up as myself. Showing up or not showing up was respected either way. One evening after work, I sat in a quiet coffee shop, soft jazz playing at just the right volume. My best friend Mia stirred her tea and looked at me for a long time, like she was waiting for me to say something I'd been avoiding for years. I told her briefly, my mom's text, the way I froze, the moment I understood the role. Mia didn't cut in. She let me stop wherever I needed to stop. Then Mia asked a question so simple it made me go still, like she'd touched the deepest part of me. "Hannah, what do you want?" Not, "What should you do to be right?" Not, "How are you going to handle this so it stays smooth?" Not, "Do you think your mom will be hurt?" Just, "What do you want?" A simple question, but to me it felt like someone asking my real name for the first time after years of calling me by a job title. I sat silent for a few seconds. My mind went blank, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I rarely let myself ask the question. Then the answer came out, small but clear. I want to breathe without feeling guilty. I want to go home, but to my own home. Mia nodded. No praising, no judging, no pulling me toward the right path. She only said, "Then I respect that." The words landed lightly, but something in me stood up straighter. For the first time, something I wanted was heard and held, not twisted into an apology. Little by little, I learned how to exist without asking permission. No long explanations for why I wasn't coming home on the weekend. No, everything's fine, texts, just to prevent someone else from feeling uncomfortable. My family was still there. Mom still posted food photos. Lauren still reacted with heart emojis. But they no longer sat at the center of my calendar. They were in a different place. Real, but no longer controlling my breathing. And the most important thing, this story didn't need anyone to lose for me to win. No dramatic reveal, no satisfying revenge. Just stepping away from an old role and deciding to stop losing myself a little less each day. Looking back, I understood I was moving toward a different kind of ending than I'd imagined. Not an ending of victory, but an ending of growing up. A new life, beginning with a question I finally dared to answer. From there, I didn't hate my family. I never wanted to turn them into bad people just so I could breathe easier. My mom was still my mom, a woman who believed the family had to stay smooth, and that smoothness sometimes mattered more than who was choking. Lauren was still my sister, capable, socially skilled, used to everything running her way. And me, I was still Hannah, just a Hannah who had stopped trading herself away to protect a surface that no longer allowed me to exist fully inside it. Some nights, I still missed home. I missed the smell of the kitchen, the low TV, the feeling of familiarity so strong I could predict it with my eyes closed. But now, missing them didn't drag me back with guilt. It only reminded me I used to belong, and that belonging sometimes starts with choosing yourself first. I learned that love shouldn't make someone disappear. No one deserves to shrink down until they're only a function. The one who calms things down, the one who keeps the peace, the one who apologizes for the whole house. Boundaries didn't make me as lonely as I'd feared. They filtered the right people, and they filtered the old habits inside me too. When I stopped trying to be easy to love in a way that drained me, I finally realized real peace isn't loud, but it has weight. Life kept moving, and I was still learning how to live honestly day by day. Sometimes I still flinched when my phone buzzed. Sometimes I still wanted to explain everything, apologize to keep it smooth. But then I remembered Mia's question. What do you want? And I practiced answering it with my choices instead of with my disappearance. Stella's back for just a moment, only to say this briefly. The story you just heard is fictional, created with the help of AI and carefully edited by humans, with the purpose of offering a reflective perspective and emotional value, not to encourage anyone to copy what happens in it. What's worth keeping, if anything, isn't about right and wrong. It's about something deeply human. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't defeating someone, but stopping the performance you do just to be loved. If you're tired of having to keep an entire house peaceful, please believe you are not weak. Some people spend their whole lives making everything fine for everyone else until they forget to ask if they are fine. And if today all you can do is take one deep breath, set down one small burden, and say, I deserve respect too, that is already brave enough. Where are you listening to this story from? Your living room after everyone's asleep, your car on the way home, or your own quiet kitchen? And what time is it where you are right now? If you want, leave a comment with just 3 words. Me too. Sometimes that's enough to help someone else feel less alone. Thank you for staying to the end. If this story touched you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. So, on the long nights ahead, we can sit together a little longer and get through everything side by side.